Hi, I'm Matt Collins. I'd like to welcome you to Bob Weber Auto Mart on Douglas Avenue here in Racine, across from Douglas Park. We specialize in 1-year-old, low mileage, almost new cars. And if you'd like to stop by and see them, or see them on our website, bobweberautomart.com, we could save you between $5,000 and $10,000 on your next almost new car purchase.
I'm Michael Burke, and this is Money Talks. Hi, welcome to Money Talks, the Journal Times online business show. I'm business reporter Michael Burke, and today we're at DuraColor in Racine with Gus Antonneau, the president and CEO, and 1/4 owner of the present company. DuraColor, we're going to start out with a little bit of history of how DuraColor came to be, and feel free to help me out, Gus. Back in 2004, I was doing stories about the crash of a really great Racine company called Color Arts. It basically self-destructed within a period of several months. And before it did, it had 226 employees. I got this from my stories at that time. It was a $25 to $30 million company, and it ended up in bankruptcy in a matter of a few months.
It actually peaked right before it did at $40 million.
Is that right?
The anniversary of Harley and the merger of Amoco into British Petroleum, and they came off their largest year.
Wow, yeah.
Going into bankruptcy.
That does sound familiar now that you say that. So 40 million, and then all of a sudden it was in bankruptcy. And a small group of investors, Wisconsin investors, then bought the assets for $5.3 million. It took a new name, DuraColor, and started out with 5 executives and a skeleton crew of 15 people. And I remember coming to this company at that time, and there'd be maybe 6 cars in the parking lot. It was so heartening today to come and see maybe 50 cars or something like that out there instead of about 6. Now, you were not yet with the company. It was a guy named Bill Nahikian, and we're doing this show on June. What's the date?
18th. Today.
Very interesting date. Tell me why.
Today happens to be the 3rd anniversary of the death of Bill Nahikian. On this day, 2010, Bill passed away of cancer.
Yeah. And he was brought in. Yeah. So I mean, that's completely by accident. He was a guy who was brought in from Western Printing or Publishing, basically to try to raise this company from the ashes of
Bill
Color Arts.
Had been president of Color Arts after Western Publishing. He ran Color Arts, and he brought along his vice president of sales, Jim O'Donnell, also from Western Publishing. And they came here, Jim doing the sales, Bill as president, and then Bill retired and Jim took over as president of Color Arts. So Bill had a background here, and when the gentlemen that purchased the assets from the bankruptcy were rekindling and restarting, they contacted Bill to ask him to head up and run the company for them as president.
But let's point out, Jim was not at the helm when the company self-destructed. I don't want to leave any implication that he ran it into the ground, because he did not.
There was some conflict with the majority and eventual sole owner of Color Arts, and he and his family took over as president. Jim left. Jim retired, went to Florida, and there was, at that point, a complete separation.
Yeah. Well, let's make it clear, by the way, what this company did then and does now. You guys print Back then, they were doing screen printing on basically making decals, right, on vinyl for various products.
Well, their background was decals as a major part of their business. They also did signs for in stores. They did other items. They did graphics on trucks for Miller Brewery. They did all the graphics on the outside of the trucks. Their big customers at that time was Harley Davidson.
They'd make decals for the gas tanks and things.
The gas
like that.
tanks and the fenders.
Yeah.
They were the sole supplier. And then they did for Yamaha. They did for Polaris, along with doing other signage. They did the transition for the gas stations when Amoco went away and became part of BP. They did all of the graphics to convert the gas stations from a branding of Amoco to the branding of British Petroleum.
That familiar green and
Green and yellow.
yeah, yeah.
And but the talents are diverse, and they can print on many different substrates with different types of ink for UV protection. When you're outside and you're talking about a long-term graphics, it needs to hold up. We're here in Wisconsin, but this same stuff will go to Arizona. It will go to California, to Texas. The UV has to be resistant.
How do you accomplish that?
You're talking to the unintelligent president, but it gets accomplished in our research and development department with our vice president of manufacturing.
So it's all in the materials.
Component parts from our suppliers, the ink suppliers, the material suppliers. They have different warranties that say under this conditions we will warrant it for 5 years.
So they from this kind of, to pick up the thread, by 2008, DuraColor, and you weren't yet with the company, but I know you know the history, but by 2008, they actually had a really good year. I did a story in early 2009 that said that they had, I think they were up to something like a little short of $20 million in business by that point.
2010 was the largest year we had, just short of 20 million. I came in late, it was sometime in 2007 as an
You came on
investor.
board? Oh, as an investor, okay.
I was not active here. Bill Nahikian was running the establishment, but the first couple of years, they thought they were going to reopen the doors of Color Arts. And unfortunately, when you have a black eye in disruption of supply, and then you have to deal with the strong arm of the trustees of a bankruptcy. The trustees are not interested in worrying about whether or not the company, the building, the reputation is tarnished. It's gone. So they are going to play as hardball as they can to derive as much revenue
Just
to
sell
go
off
to
the assets. Yeah.
creditors.
Yeah.
And in doing so, they caused some bad feelings with the major customers.
And of course, the major customers immediately, as soon as you guys can't supply them with what they need, they go scurrying off to somebody who can, so they can keep their production lines rolling.
Yes.
And it's hard to win that back.
And in a very short period of time following that, as the salespeople of the new company, DuraColor, are out knocking on their doors again, even though they've had a long-standing relationship. Sorry, go away. Some were semi-polite. Some had a cultural change with directions coming from...
Let's just stop there.
the bankruptcy trustees, the treating
Yeah,
of
okay.
the...
So you were talking
And
about.
some had the cultural delicateness of a little concern, and then you get the stouch, strong personalities of the Japanese, and some of the corporate, the Yamahas of the world. Their corporate structure said you will not deal with people that have left you hanging high and dry. So it wasn't just dealing with the U.S. factors. The orders had come from corporate. And so
Interesting. And a lot of those customers, you as DuraColor, have never been able to win back. How were you able to keep BP, though? Or
it was not keep. We had to, in 2007, they went out to bids. And DuraColor was successful in being the winning bidder
Okay.
on a contract.
A big contract, right?
It was signed contract for a 2-year period,
Okay.
and it was very substantial in 2008. It was signed in 7, but you don't start actually seeing results of it until the former supplier gets an opportunity to work down their inventory and run out the inventories so that your buildup starts taking over. And I remember in the local newspaper, and that was about where my friend and I became investors in DuraColor. Shortly before that, in the Journal Times was an article, BP signs contract with local firm DuraColor. And wow, there it
I don't
is.
remember that, but it had to have been my story.
And a short time after, they were having financial struggles, and some of the investors no longer had an interest in supporting the cash calls. And that's when I and my partner, my friend, came in to become equal owners with the other two.
So you said this company's got possibilities because of that contract?
Bill Nahikian
Uh-huh.
convinced me of that.
Oh, uh-huh.
And we came on board. And
So 2008 now was a good
was-
year for DuraColor, but that was also just coming into the recession. What happened in the recession years? And coming into 2010 when Bill was becoming so sick with cancer.
well, 2008 was a boom year for DuraColor. We had a huge amount of work for BP in changing over their pumps nationwide to include their new ingredient, Invigorate, into their marketing and their fuel mixture. And so we had to skin all of the gas pumps throughout the country with that. Extremely busy. 2009, it slowed down and we had other things there. But in the meantime, we needed to start diversifying. You can't be
Right.
a one customer
Right.
operation. 2010, we had all kinds of things break loose, and the
Break
place-
loose meaning?
new business,
Okay.
diversifications.
Oh.
People knocked on our doors, and we were.
Interesting, despite the recession.
Well, our salespeople were out there knocking, I guess. Not all profitable.
Oh,
And unfortunately, simultaneously with that, Bill wasn't, his cancer, he had been fighting cancer for a couple of years, and it was starting to have its toll. And our operating system, our automation system, was an old system from ColorArts yet, very outdated. Updating it was not even in the question. If you wanted the current version, that software company said, start over new with the new version, because yours is so outdated. In that, we looked around at them and made a decision to switch to a different proprietary system in the printing field. Anytime you change to a complete new system, there's going to be problems. Going through that problem, we had 7 months without getting financial information automated into the system. So anything we were getting was a guess. And being
Was that affecting your production and what you were
No.
able to supply your customers?
No, we were doing
It was
research.
more internal problems?
We had everything happening at once. We couldn't tell financially what we were spending and what we were taking in. Our profit and losses weren't there. We were developing and designing a light that goes on top of a gas pump for ARCO. ARCO is the old Atlantic Richfield. It's a subsidiary of BP on the West Coast. And we built, with the help of Rude Lighting, the light search engine, we printed and heat molded and bent a complete canopy light that sits on top of a gas pump. Now that requires UL approval, because you are not going to put electricity on top of a gas pump without proper engineering.
Sure.
We ended up hiring a consulting engineer. We had him full-time here. He has eventually come on now as an employee. Along with that, Walgreens was making over their stores, and they had been with Color Arts at one time, left Color Arts. They came back, and their ad agency and DuraColor together were laying out the interior and printing and making interior for the Walgreens. We did over 2,000 stores that year for Walgreens. One of our subcontractors used the wrong adhesive in a styrofoam arc. The 3M had spec'd the particular adhesive, the wrong one was used. When the installation contractors were installing it, it would fail. It was not meant to be handled.
What a year.
like
So you
wood.
have a year where you're changing a whole operating system, where building in dies, and you have these issues with Walgreens. I got to have you jump ahead, Gus, because we are actually, believe it or not, getting near the end of our time. Just talk about who are the main customers of DuraColor these days, and where are you, if you don't mind, what sort of revenues do you expect this year, and who are your major customers?
We have grown in '08, when we first actually started a sustainable volume, around 14, 15 million in sales. In 2010, we got just short of 20 million. 11, we got to about 17 million, 16.9. I expect we're going to be around the 17 million again this year.
And profitable?
And profitable, yes. Our market is expanding. The Shopko stores we do a lot of work for.
We have of course we have a Shopko here, so if somebody watches this and they walk into Shopko, what is something that DuraColor made?
Oh, the signs, back to school sales, the fall sales, the Christmas sales, a lot of the sales literature signs that go all over around in the store.
And you guys still have BP as a customer?
We do an awful lot of British Petroleum nationwide, redoing their gas stations that need sprucing up, fixing up.
So the rebranding is finished, but
Rebrand.
now it's a matter of kind of maintaining a fresh look with the
And
stations.
rebranding when independents moved from a different brand to a BP. So the stations
Oh, yeah, I
have to
see.
be redone.
And how many employees do you have today?
We have about 65 employees on our payroll. And after that, we use contract labor, because when we have heavy projects, we need to gear up, and then we settle back down.
So it's not 225 employees as Color Arts had, but it's a nice, healthy company these days. Do you see it, last question, do you see it growing beyond in employment, which is kind of the thing that people care most about? Do you see that growing, or do you see the company staying stable over the next few years?
I don't see any huge surge. The 65 to 70 staff core employees is adequate with the help. We at times will bring 15 to 20 contract laborers from employment service,
yeah.
but that's not a steady run,
Yeah.
and you can't
Okay.
justify that.
Well, I'm glad to hear that DuraColor is alive and well. And so Gus Antonneau, President and CEO, thanks a lot for being on Money Talks. You've been watching Money Talks, the Journal Times online business show. I'm business reporter Michael Burke. Thanks to our producer Scott Anderson. And please remember, Money Talks.